Hello there, I'm Mike Creevy for Homeschool Connections, and with me today, I have a special treat here. This is the first pair that I've interviewed, so we're delighted to be joined here today by Dr. Sam Nicholson and Mrs. Eleanor Nicholson. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Very well, thanks for having us.
It's well in the emails here. It seemed like it would be a more practical thing to instead of doing this twice with each of you. It might be nice to have you together, save some time maybe. So we're delighted to have you both here. What I thought we could do is just go through the couple questions we like to do in these interviews, and I think I'll go by question, and just basically you guys can kind of answer in kind of in tandem here if you want to go back to back. If you want to rock, paper, scissors for the order, that's fine. Or we can do ladies first. It doesn't matter to me. But why don't we just start with asking you guys to share a little bit about your own backgrounds and really what led you both to Homeschool Connections.
Spiritual head of the household. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
That was a test.
Having that card played. Yeah. So I'm a former academic. I was a college professor for several years. I got my PhD at the University of Virginia in philosophy. And I got out of academia, and I now work at our local parish. I do facilities there, a little bit of a change of pace.
Wow.
And through a connection, through an acquaintance at Homeschool Connections, he asked if I was interested in teaching for them and put in a recommendation. And so I've been teaching logic and philosophy for them for the last several years now.
Wow. How about you, Eleanor?
Well, and actually, my connection with Homeschool Connections comes first, but I also got my master's at the University of Virginia. We met through the parish. Sam was going through RCIA. I went into literary circles, Catholic literary circles, courtesy of Dr. Joseph Pierce, who supported me sort of as a mentor a million years ago when I was in college. And I've worked for and with him ever since. Well, one day Maureen Whitman reached out and said, "Joseph, will you teach a course on Dracula?" And he said, "No, but I know who will," because I had just edited the Ignatius Critical Edition of Dracula. I've done a lot of that scholarly work, several of the classics that I've edited for Ignatius. So I started with Dracula and have been teaching primarily Victorian, but some genre studies, all literature. I'm very much in the 19th century in my preferences ever since. So that's been, oh golly, since 2017.
Sure. Wow. It's funny. I just heard today, I was listening to a podcast with Joseph on it, and he had mentioned, that common sort of image of the 19th century novel really being such a, I don't know, golden age, if that's the right phrase to use, but there is something about that era that's really profound. So I don't, there's so many questions I want to ask both of you. That's what's kind of tricky about this, but to try to keep myself as focused as possible. Maybe you could just speak a little bit to the courses that you both teach, here for Homeschool Connections. You've mentioned them a little bit already. Is there, if you had to pick a favorite or two, is that even possible to do? What do you like to kind of do through your Homeschool Connections courses?
Yeah, well, the classes that I teach, I think I can break down into two categories. So on the one hand, I teach logic courses, and those operate a little bit differently from the more topical or historically focused philosophy classes. And in a way, I enjoy teaching those a lot because it's a lot like teaching a math class. There are definite right and wrong answers. It's a matter of mastering technique and, learning certain formal rules. And a lot of students really respond well to it. And I would say that one of my favorites is to teach modern symbolic logic. And it's usually a course that you only encounter at the college level. But I find a lot of high school students really take to it and they really enjoy it. And it kind of opens up an entirely new set of options for them because they don't typically think of doing something in logic or philosophy that's that formal and mathematics like, and yet has applications for things in the humanities. And I think for a lot of people that have more of a STEM orientation, they come to it and they really like it, but they also see that it's applicable to things in the humanities like philosophy and certain other disciplines like that. And it sort of gets something to click for them. And so they may come in thinking that, it's just a matter of opinion. It's really just kind of fluffy, but then they can see that there is a kind of rigor to humanistic studies. And I think that opens up a lot of things.
So like a kind of a bridge between your faith and reason there, perhaps, or between the more humanities versus more the hard sciences and mathematics. Sure. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's been super cool that Sam's been able to do in high school courses. I'm actually a graduated homeschooler, and I've said to my mother, she would have been a little bit nervous about logic, saying, I want my children to have, but I'm intimidated by it. And I think that Sam's able to do that, to provide that for families, and to give the framework that our students really need for critical thinking when they go, for example, to the college level and they're facing disciplines that could use that additional rigor, let's say.
Yep.
and it just comes down to, for me, it's a matter of pedagogic philosophy, just because it's so typical to think that logic is something that you take, if at all, only when you're college aged. And I don't know why there's this widespread assumption that high schoolers can't do it. Because I just look and I say, look, if you can take geometry or if you can balance equations in high school level chemistry, then there's no reason why you can't study logic. And it is just such a useful prophylactic, especially for all the things that are going to get thrown at them at university.
That was the first formal exposure I had to it, was when I was a 26-year-old seminarian studying for the Diocese of Harrisburg. And I just kept thinking to myself the whole way through it. I was like, why did I not ever see this before I was 26 years old? It was a crime. Yeah, absolutely. Eleanor, how about you with your courses? You mentioned some of them a little bit, of course, but what are you really passionate about? And which age ranges too? I meant to ask for you as well.
So we both teach high school, but I tell my students all the time I only teach the books I love, which is such a blessing. And I do primarily focus on the 19th century, but I have a few courses that go a little further. There was nothing for the 19th century really when I came on board. So I've built Dickens courses in, Introduction to the 19th Century courses in. I've done genre studies with Gothic literature, sensation fiction, mystery fiction. I have a 2-part series on that. I also did a 2-semester course on Jane Austen. So much fun. Absolutely fabulous. The students read everything Jane Austen, even down to some of her letters, her unfinished work. So really cool. I told them they were experts by the end. I've taught the Brontes. I've taught focus courses on individual titles. So I have a course on Dickensian Christmas. I am a huge Dickens fan. And I've been able, that's good. That's good. See that. I also tell them, though, you can dislike Dickens and still be a worthwhile person just with no taste, like my husband. But when I found out he didn't love Dickens, I really had to think if that was a deal breaker in our relationship.
Now she just condescendingly chalks it up to bad formation.
I do.
There you go.
I'm not a bad person. It's just that I was broken by bad teaching.
There it is.
If you'd taken a different course with me, you would have loved Dickens.
You
would have. But in my courses, I'm able to achieve many things that were achieved in my high school homeschooling experience, and to convey to them, I hope, a love of literature and the ability to go deeper. High school age, you really can transition from book report to literary critical analysis. And it's so much fun because you can just see them making the leap from, well, this is what the story's about, to, well, this is what the story conveys. And to take a lot of the tools that I saw utilized as well when I was in college, and to counteract the things that I thought were taught wrongly in college. I thought that's not right. That's not how you should be teaching. That is not going to give love of virtue or life or deepen their love of their neighbor and love of God, which in the end is the goal in every single course. So no, they're tremendous fun. It's something we're able to do with our children increasingly as they get older. We have five children whom we also homeschool, but just that it's a golden moment in homeschooling education is when they hit high school and things start clicking.
Yeah. Well, and then for that unleashing potentially of at least the appreciation, if not the direct taking up the pen themselves. Because you, of course, as a published author, I wanted to bring this up. I've thoroughly enjoyed, honestly, a genre that I don't know that I tend to kind of gravitate towards, but I was so blown away to read A Bloody Habit and Brother Wolf, and it was just so these. I don't know if you want to talk about them a little bit, but this modern Gothic novel that sort of genre that you've treaded into is really an exciting genre for sure.
Well, and it's funny to find myself in it because I'm a chicken. I'm so easily scared, and so. That's why I really define myself as a Gothic novelist versus, say, a horror novelist. I don't like horror. It's that's an unnatural child of the Gothic. But when I studied the 19th century and started seeing what they were doing, and the potential to address deep themes, but also to counterbalance it with humor. One of my
Yes.
awkward coping mechanisms is laughter at inappropriate moments. So that's how I handle things. It's how I handle
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So working that in as well, and playing with another theme that's very dear to my heart. It's what I specialized in graduate school, was anti-Catholicism in the Victorian period and how it led to the heyday of the English Catholic novel. And a lot of that you see in Gothic novels. So I'm able to harness some of that scholarly work, and just hopefully write an entertaining story that is still has literary depth. So both. I like joy. I on the, is literature supposed to be edifying, or is it supposed to be delightful? I want both.
Yeah, yes. No, it's both. Well, that's so awesome. And just again, we're, like I said, I would talk to you guys forever, but just to try to, start to bring this home here a little bit, just to, give people a little, kind of wetting the whistle here, getting their appetites, going to look into your courses more. Would each of you just want to maybe share, some maybe little detail about, at least from one of your courses, of a particular methodology use, or maybe an assessment or a unit, some sort of thing you like to do in the classroom setting, that you want to share with folks?
Yeah, what I like to do is introduce people to ideas that are being discussed now in our contemporary culture, but to do it by way of some ancient author who's already addressed it. I think that one of the things that people are surprised by is when they read, for example, ancient philosophy or Hellenistic philosophy, and they encounter somebody like Epicurus or Sixtus Empiricus, they're struck by how modern sounding the ideas are. And there's this conceit that all of these ideas are somehow new and uniquely bad, and we just really have no tools for addressing them. And what it is that people are simply unfamiliar with it. And you go back and you read some of these things, and you just see that this could be something that was written in an op-ed 30 days ago, but it's from the 4th century BC. And I think that really gives people a sense that the church in particular, because it has this long history and tradition of philosophy, has the resources to address these things, and that it's not as if we are back on our heels against this hostile culture that has got us, outgunned intellectually. And I think that once you just expose people to that, they really start to see that, their own sort of perceptions, as shaped as they are by the media and the contemporary culture, are very limited. And they start to see that there's something bigger that's out there, and it gives them a more, I would say, a greater degree of confidence and a more robust, sort of courage in articulating the truths of the faith, and just seeing that there really is a lot of resources, many resources that are available to them if they just avail themselves of it.
Awesome. That's in a positive way too. With I know that's like every time I read Chesterton, or I see a quote, just something where I'm like, I said that last week. Of course, not nearly as awesome as you just said it, but oh my gosh, like that is, and it's like I look at it like 1905. Okay. So yeah, that's so, it makes you feel less alone and less disconnected, or you feel more connected with the whole rich, history of humanity and our faith. Well, that's awesome. Eleanor, how about you? Anything you want to highlight from your courses at all, or?
Well, what I would say, I assume that most of the parents aren't going to need a major sell on the importance of literature. So instead, I would just talk about the way I structure my classes, which is pretty much the same template. My recurring students probably know what to expect. And throughout, I'm always taking the pulse of what they're thinking, what they're feeling about the book, about the characters, because that their opinions are helping us, dig deeper. But we always do a play-by-play by chapter and review what happened for the part of the book that we're discussing. And that gives me the opportunity to identify comprehension lapses, or, oh, wait, that's what happened? Or wait, what does this word mean? Why did that happen? What does this signify? We do that sort of march through the plot. Then I give them a major chunk of context, all of which builds across a given course. After we work through the context, which could be anything like the Victorian period, what is Gothic fiction, who is Charles Dickens or Jane Austen, what was Charles Dickens' social vision, to give us that added lens for understanding what's going on in the book, we spend a large chunk at the end of the class reading aloud and doing critical analysis, as I say, our close reading moment of a section of the book. And that gives them the opportunity to take turns at the microphone, read aloud. You can tell the students who've read aloud before, but I encourage the ones who are nervous, who haven't read aloud before, to take turns. They get a lot of supporting response from their fellow students. And just looking that closely at the text usually leads us to a deeper understanding of it. So those are the three major components in every class. And by the end, they're really well situated so they can do things like take on an optional literary critical essay, which I add. And the reason it's optional is specifically because I want students who are nervous about writing not to be nervous about reading. And many of them who say, I've never written a literary critical essay, I say, well, then come with me, we'll do this, and I will accompany you through several stages and develop this paper together. So that way I can meet them where they are, if they're ready to write a paper or if their parents say they have to, and work with them basically the way that my mother worked with me when she taught me how to write, which was a back and forth conversation between me as the writer and my mother as the reader and the teacher, just guiding, honing. She's still my reader. She has my current manuscript, actually.
Oh, nice.
And I need that feedback. I need that conversation. And so I like to give that to the students too, if they're ready for it.
Wonderful. Well, this sounds so exciting. There's so many things for folks to check out. What would you guys recommend for parents who want to learn more, get in touch with you, and students want to learn more and sign up?
They can shoot me an email, certainly. Anytime.
Email is a great contact. And also just check us out on Homeschool Connections. Just look at our pages.
We've got links there.
You'll get a nice representative sampling of what we offer.
Wonderful. Well,
but don't let your students read my books unless you talk with me first, because they may not be.
They do have some scary moments. But well, Sam and Eleanor Nicholson, thank you both so much for stopping by today and sharing about your Homeschool Connections courses. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
God bless.
Take care.